21 years after an upstate New York college student disappears, a new iHeartRadio original podcast sheds new light on the case. This season, we explore the disappearance of Suzanne Lyle.
He calls up and his statement is, "Did you know Susie was missing?"
We follow her footsteps and dive deep into her world, searching for answers. I'm Phoebe LaFave, and this is Upstate Unsolved. Listen on the iHeartRadio app or anywhere you get podcasts.
This is Incredible Health with Dr. David Vitko.
Good morning, my dear friends, and you are listening to Enjoy Incredible Health with me, your host, Dr. David Vitko. I'm a chiropractic physician with over 30 years experience in helping you and your loved ones, hopefully someone you know, but everybody I meet to live a little healthier and feel a little better every day by eating the right foods, and more and more I'm getting into having the right mindset and having the right outlook, and that's what we're going to talk about today. And this was really brought to my mind recently when I did an interview with Ron Verb this past week on Wednesday on Ron's show. He called me in the afternoon, and Wednesday's my day off, and I said, sure, yeah, hey, let me come in. He said, we'll do it on the phone. I said, no, I want to come in. I enjoy sitting in the studio. And Ron's a bright guy, and it really was enjoyable sitting down and talking to him. And so we had a great interview, and that interview is available. If you haven't heard it, I highly recommend it because it goes through a lot of things that maybe, I wouldn't bring out myself in talking about my esophageal cancer and all this, the disease and how I'm treating and stuff like that. Ron brought a lot of that out of me with his questions in a way that maybe I didn't think of. So it's a good show to listen to for sure. And you can listen to that anytime. You can go to 570wkbn.iheart.com. And those podcasts are available. Look under Ron's podcasts. I'm going to see if later on, I don't know, I'll probably need to get Ron's permission to do this, but see if I can actually post that on my website too. And certainly I just looked the other day, I think I have almost 70 podcasts now. Hard to believe I've been doing this for a year, but almost 70 podcasts on my website, and that's drvitkohealth.com. And so you can listen to those podcasts. Each one's about 40 or 50 minutes long and full of all kind of knowledge, and you can listen for free anytime you like and learn. So today I'm going to try to add to that a little bit and give you some extra knowledge that I've gained this past week. As I said, my interview with Ron really made me kind of tweak out some details in how I'm thinking about how I treat my body and how I'm treating my esophageal cancer and what the whole situation is with that, my odds of winning the battle and things like that. It really brought a lot of that home. And I already was set in my thoughts on how I wanted to treat it for the most part. I'm always looking at different things on that. I'm going to bring one in today that I discovered that I didn't realize was true, and it's very interesting. But for the most part, I was pretty well set. But, I thought I was set in how I looked at the whole picture. And I've had people tell me over the past really month or two, man, you really have a good outlook on this. You really seem to, you accept it and you set up a plan to follow and you're following it, and you're willing to accept whatever happens, and that's just like it seems like I have a good mental clarity about my mindset about this whole thing. But, after talking to Ron about it and then reflecting on that afterwards, I figured out that I'm missing something still. I'm missing something in my mindset. And I'll tell you that, folks, there are two things that you need if you're dealing with a serious disease. And really, these things are very important in life in general, but especially with any kind of serious disease. I don't care if it's something that, can potentially be deadly, or if it's just something that makes your life miserable. And God knows there's enough of both of those out there. But to me, the two things that we need to have even the chance of overcoming this disease, whatever it is you have to have absolute faith. And to me, that means absolute faith in God that my immune system is the most superior design there could ever be, and that no disease could function against that and win in the long run. So the absolute faith part, and then you have to have a deep commitment and a desire to live. Now, that sounds kind of dumb. I mean, who doesn't want to live? Well, there are people out there that don't want to live. But when you get a diagnosis that says that, and this, I really despise this about the medical profession. They like to categorize things and say, well, you probably have 3 months, 6 months to live. Your odds of living 5 years or this or that. I think that's so wrong. I think that is so limiting. And what I'm going to talk about during the show today is going to bring that to light, because there are many people out there who beat the odds. So why give the odds? Why put limitations on people's thoughts? So you need this desire to live. You need a reason to live, because when you hear from the medical doctors or the oncologists, or you maybe have 6 months to live, get things in order or whatever, that puts your mind in a position of defeat to begin with. And you know what also drove this home to me last night was watching the Ohio State football game versus Wisconsin. And I hope you all saw it. I'm sure a lot of you maybe don't watch football, but hey, you have to watch Ohio State. Come on now. They are phenomenal. And, we're watching the beginning of the game, and I'm texting back and forth with my son, and who lives in Florida, and we're back and forth, and it's like, they're not looking too good, they're going to have to pick up that. And, everybody knows Ohio State is really a second half team. They make adjustments, and they really believe in themselves. And so here we go. They have to have a deep desire to win. And in the first half, I didn't see that desire in Ohio State's eyes. I don't know if you pay attention to this or not, but having played football and enjoyed a lot of different sports throughout my life and coached a lot of youth soccer and baseball, you need that spark. You need that the thing that ignites you and gives you that upper hand. I don't care if we're talking about winning a football game or beating cancer. If you don't have that spark, you're going to lose. That's all there is to it. The spark is what puts you on top. And boy, in the first half of that game, Wisconsin had the spark. There was no doubt about it. Nisi and I were sitting there watching the game, and she's like, what? Why does Ohio State look so... They look like sluggish. They look slow. What? They didn't have the spark. And I think that their ego maybe got to them going into that game. And going into the game, they expected to walk on the field and have the game handed to them. And sure enough, they found out they had to battle. And, thank God they had the gumption and the depth to reach down inside and pull themselves up by their bootstraps and get back in that game and win it. And what an incredible game. I really enjoyed that, and I hope you did too. It was the only game I got to see yesterday. There were a lot of good ones on. LSU's excellent too. If it ends up being Ohio State and LSU, Ohio State's they better come out and play well in the first seconds of the game if they want a chance of beating LSU, I'll tell you. But anyway, enough football. So the two things that you really need in health, especially in health, but in life in general, is absolute faith and a desire and strong reasons to live. So for me, my strong reasons to live are plastered all over my bulletin board that is in front of my desk, and I see them all day long every time I sit down at my desk to do something between patients. And there are pictures of my wife and my kids and my parents. Even though they're gone, I live to make them proud. Other family members, things I enjoy. We used to love going down to Siesta Key, Florida. I have a couple, pictures of the places down there, pictures of the beaches, things that put that spark in me, that give me that desire to get up the next day and work towards something. And, part of what I'm using in this whole thing to do that is putting this book together, to pull all this information together that I'm doing to save myself from cancer and to share with other people. That's part of my drive and motivation as well. So all these things I have plastered all over my bulletin board. I see them every day. If you ask Nisi in my office, I have the word book printed large, on cardstock and taped up in 4 or 5 different places to remind me, of what I need to do, what I want to work on, what motivates me, what makes you want to get out of bed in the morning. And if you struggle with your health in general, you might be able to get one of these online radio doctor vitamin deals and think that that'll help. But nothing will help you more than having a purpose for getting up in the morning. And when you have that purpose, it gives you that spark, and that can overcome any discomfort you have and can help you to move forward. That other thing, that absolute faith thing, I thought I had. And the deeper I looked into that, I did a great, nice, long soak in the bath. Actually, I've done it the last 2 days, and I have something to talk about with that, too. And maybe, that might have been one of those things that God led me to that I didn't even really understand what I was doing. But to me, whenever I sit down in a nice hot bath, the first thing I think is, thank you, God. That is the best feeling in life. I've told you before, I've had 18 kidney stones in my life. The only relief that I had OxyContin, I had all these different medications. None of those helped. A hot bath gave me relief. It was amazing. And kind of the same thing now. I have this swallowing issue, and I have some chest pain from time to time. But it just gives you an overall sense of well-being. And but anyway, so I actually took, Denise said she was getting a little worried about me because I was in there a little kind of long. I was in there probably almost an hour, and probably a little too long for a hot bath. But I had a chance to really think deeply about my faith, and not only my faith in the healing process, but faith in God in general. And I found that I actually do have a much deeper faith than I talk about with people. And when I talk about people who have no faith, who don't believe in God, which I fail to understand, I don't see any value in not having some belief in God. I mean, what's the upside of that? And it's nice to know that there is a power in the universe that has some control over the order of the universe, If you're a scientist, that makes sense to you. If you're the average person, it's nice to know that God is in control, isn't it? And that we don't have to control every little thing. And so there's nothing like a nice, long, hot soak in a tub. And usually I have music playing. And these last couple of days, I didn't. I just had nothing playing. I just had quiet. And it's amazing where your thoughts go in that. I highly recommend that if you get a chance. And besides that, I found that there is great medicinal value to heat as far as cancer goes. And I'm going to talk about that here, at least in the second half of the show. So, I'll have time for one or two phone calls during the show. If you want to call in, you're welcome to call in. I'm going to get on to some material that I read on the internet that I found by looking for remission and looking for cases of people in the medical journals who spontaneously, their disease went away, their cancer went away. It was there one day, a month later, 2 months later, was scanned and wasn't there. How do you explain that? That's a pretty tough explanation. But anyway, if you want to call in on that or anything else, the number here is 330-729-9977. And be glad to take your call, and we can talk about that. At least through the second half of the show, I'm going to get into this radical remission site. A young lady, PhD, put this site together. She wrote a book that I intend to get where she's interviewing these people who survived. Gee, who would have ever thought of that? There are millions of people dying of cancer and other diseases every day, and science is focused on those people that are dying. Who would ever think, hey, why don't we look at these people that are surviving? Sometimes we don't know why, and try to figure out why they're surviving. Wow, what a concept. And so, when I was looking through this and reading this, I'm thinking, wow, it took this young PhD student to kind of think about this. And I know there's been a couple other books done on that in the past, but hers actually looks very good to me. And all right, so we got a phone call. I'm going to talk to Denny from Rock Creek. Good morning, Denny. What's up, buddy?
Yeah, good morning. I heard authorities say a while back that hot baths and hot showers will lower blood pressure, too. And I told my PA physician assistant about that, but she never heard of that. But there was an authority, I can't remember where I heard it from, but and I'm a Finn, and we loved saunas and steam baths, and I don't do that. But, heat. I think heat is great.
Okay, so listen to this authority, because I have a lot of experience with heat, and I will tell you something. It does drop your blood pressure, and for some people, it can drop it dangerously low, especially a really hot bath, and if you're in there too long. Denny, I've had times where I've stayed in a bath for 40 minutes or so and got up and got lightheaded, and I'm not usually that way. So especially older folks need to be careful.
Exactly. Yeah. If you've had heart surgery and that, they don't recommend saunas and steam baths and overdoing heat. I understand that.
Yeah, but, or even medications.
People just
even medications can affect that. So, you be careful about it. Talk to your doctor about it and ease into it. Don't do what I do, get in there for an hour now. But that's part of my treatment, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. But you're right.
I do showers, hot showers. I love hot showers.
Great way to go.
Even in the summer. Yeah,
that's for sure. All right. Hey, thanks for calling in, Denny. Have a great weekend.
Yep.
So I want to get on with this radical remissions thing, and so this is a website actually that I found, and again, this. She appears to be a fairly young lady, wrote this book back in 2008, actually. And I'm sure she's had a ton of bricks come down on her for this, because it goes against conventional medical wisdom in saying that somebody could spontaneously heal. But, I know, and this is something else you can call in with this morning, folks. If you know somebody who spontaneously got better, who had cancer, and and either started taking treatment and quit or didn't take any treatment and they got better, I'd love to hear from you. I know there are cases out there. As a matter of fact, this young lady, this Dr. Kelly Turner, she actually found thousands of cases in the medical documentation that talk about this very thing. Now, if it's funny because from the medical end of things, like in reading in the medical literature, I found a couple of articles that point out that, there's only been 1 or 2 cases since 1928 or something. It's such bull. It's such a one-sided, got my blinders on, not willing to look at anything else concept that we get sometimes from structured medicine. And now you see that some medical doctors are starting to look outside the box a little bit on this. And they're saying, hey, look, how is it that these people are surviving without treatment? How is it that some of these people can go on living years after they were supposed to be dead? I mean, there are, on this Radical Remissions website that this Dr. Kelly Turner has, there are cases where people have written in and written their stories. And then, yeah, there's going to be a bogus story here or there. I can guarantee it. I think I can read through most of that and tell if one is. And I didn't find any exactly in what I was reading. But there are probably tens of thousands of cases that you never hear about because they're not reported. There are people like me that, I use a medical doctor or two in my process, but they're not tracking my chart necessarily. I'm tracking it. But if I don't do something with that, if I don't report that, it doesn't get reported. I go on living, and life is great, and I'm thankful to God that I survived. But that's the end of the story. Nobody hears about it. Maybe a few family members hear about it or something. But there's something much bigger out there that needs to be expanded and needs to be studied better, because there are things like heat in treatment. And when you read about treating cancer with heat, a lot of times it gets very technical because they can use different technical devices like these electromagnetic, electrothermal radiating devices and things. And you know what? And at the end of the article it says, and you can do whole body immersion. So you can take a hot bath is what it says. Now, it's hard to get the temperature up to where it's going to have an effect. But my bet is that there's a varying degree of effect on weakening cancer cells all the way from warmth all the way up to the temperature that kills cancer cells. And they talk about how heating these cancer cells to a point definitely weakens them to where chemotherapy and radiation are way more effective. Now, that seems pretty enticing, doesn't it? There's still the money-making angle that medicine has, that pharmaceutical companies have. They can still make their millions, and yet we have more people surviving. That would be a really great concept, and I think we should look into that. Very few people are looking into it because there's no great profit incentive in it. And so, that's something else. But when we come back after the break, we're gonna talk more about this Radical Remissions site. And I'm going to tie that in with a couple of things that I found in the National Library of Medicine that talks about the same thing, about how people survive sometimes without treatment. You are listening to Enjoy Incredible Health with Dr. David Vitko, and I can't wait till we get back in just a couple of minutes, folks.
Welcome back to Incredible Health with Dr. David Vitko.
All righty, time to get into the second half of the show. I can't believe how fast an hour goes. I hear people say, how do you talk for an hour? Goes fast. Goes fast, folks. So before I get into any of this, I want to mention I just heard our little blurb for the Backtracks and from my cholesterol book. Great Christmas gifts, and they're not that expensive. And if you're interested in either of those, the books I have in my office, hard or softback, paperback copies of it, or you can get it online if you want to. But it helps if you buy it direct from us. And those are $20. But the Backtracks I take orders for. I only build them by order now. I only have so much materials left because I kind of stopped making them myself. I still do a few, and so I have a limited supply. So if you think you might be interested in a backtrack for somebody for a gift, it is a great gift. And the thing I never really push this, but for people that sit at a desk during the day, like work at a computer, and you get that tension between your shoulders and your neck and all, that thing works perfect for that. It's amazing. I've been having some mid-back discomfort with this esophageal cancer, and I can get on that thing and work that tension out in a minute. It's amazing. So it does work really well, and I'm still building a few. So if you're interested, call my office, 330-482-9550, and you should do it this week if you're going to want one because, well, I'm excited. My kids are coming into town for Christmas time, and looking forward to spending time with them. So next 2 weeks is probably all I've got time to do as far as building Backtracks and running the office. So I want to get back into this whole thing about radical remissions. These are things where people have severe disease, cancer, deadly cancer. They're given so long to live, and they end up outliving the doctors many times. And so this is what we want to talk about now. If you want to call in and ask a question about it, or you have a comment or a story about it, keep it short if you can. 330-729-9977. That's 729-9977. So this young lady, this PhD, did her work on looking at these people who had radical remissions, people who had serious disease, usually cancer, and were told they were going to die, and take care of your affairs. And these people went on to live. And so she had the bright idea in part of her PhD thesis is let's go out and let's interview these people and see what they have that nobody else has and why they survive. And I'll read a couple excerpts out of this. Just the beginning of this. Actually, this story was written about her. This isn't like a promotional blurb for this Dr. Kelly Turner. But it's written about her. It was an article that was in Medscape.com. So you could go to Medscape, Medscape.com, and you can find this article. And just look up, you can look up the author, Roxanne Nelson, and or Dr. Kelly Turner, and you could find this article. And it really is an interesting read. All right, so I'm about ready to get into this, but I got a phone call. I'm going to take a phone call here real quick. Good morning, Luke. It's Dr. Vitko. How can I help you?
Yes, sir. I just went through esophageal, the cancer in your throat.
Right.
And I did all their chemo, and actually I went through that radiation about 30 times. And how do they know if it's gone or not?
Did they rescan you?
Not yet. They're waiting till February because of, 2 weeks ago was my last treatment.
Okay. And how are you feeling?
I feel a hell of a lot better.
Yeah, so it actually probably shrunk the tumor. Are you able to swallow?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so were you before?
I was able to, but I was having some breathing problems.
Okay. And
that's gone.
Did they say initially, had your tumor metastasized? Did you have any tumor in the lung or any other place?
No.
Nothing?
No, Doc. I was lucky. They said it was just that area, and that was it.
Okay. Well, you were very much like my case. And in my case, they said, you're going to get the chemo and the radiation. I'm glad that worked for you. It sounded like it made a big difference. Are they talking now of cutting the esophagus out, or have they talked to you about that?
The only thing they said is if it does come back, they are going to have to take it out.
Yeah. Well, that would be a good thing. Luke, were you a smoker or anything? What do you attribute?
Yeah.
You were?
I was that, and then just the years of working, the chemicals and stuff I was exposed to. It could have been anything.
Yeah, you never know is right. I mean, it's a lot of odd cases. And you took
There's
it.
people.
Go
There's
ahead.
people that got good health and get cancer,
Yeah, that was me right there. So, did you take your treatment locally?
Yes, I did.
Was it like one of the local hospitals?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. And so, I hope you call in and keep us informed in the future here, because I'll be curious to see how you do. I hope to God it doesn't come back for you, and I hope that you get a great scan when you go and get rescanned here. And try to, you want to try to eat healthy and live healthfully. I hope you quit smoking.
Yeah, I did.
Okay, very good. And if you don't mind me asking, Luke, how old are you?
I'm 56.
56. You're right in that ballpark of, I'm 60, and it's really, I think it's between 45 or 46 and 70 is the biggest number of people that get that esophageal cancer. So, hey, did they happen to say what kind yours was? Was it adenocarcinoma or was it squamous cell?
I never did ask them which it was, or if they remembered what they told me.
Okay.
My wife would have it written down, but I'm not home right now.
Yeah, well, that's cool. Well, I appreciate you calling in. You have any questions or anything, or?
No, that's just the biggest thing. I thought pretty much it was because of the scan, and I got to wait for that. But
yeah, it's funny the way
I say I feel.
You feel
better.
Oh, that's good. That's great, and that's a good sign. I'll tell you, especially if you can swallow well, because that's my biggest problem is that I have difficulty swallowing, and the tumor growth is the thing that makes that bad. So if the tumor shrinks, you swallow better. So you're
actually
good.
With that radiation, I swear to God, there was something a few weeks back that I hacked up that it seemed like it was about the same size as that tumor.
Yeah, well, that I wouldn't be surprised, because that radiation kills the tumor cells, and it's got to go somewhere.
Yeah, it kills everything. I tell you, it kills your eating. It kills everything there for a while.
Yeah, and so did you go through how often did you have the chemo?
Chemo was once a week, radiation every day. Right.
That's what they recommended for me too. And did you get any burns from the radiation on your skin?
Yeah, I had a few spots that actually showed up, but then your throat, of course, when they're zapping you, it really gets fried on the outside, your skin.
Yeah.
It dries up, but I kept pretty good care of things, and being a diabetic on top of it.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So I had, a lot more to watch for and a lot more to go through. But
right. Were you overweight?
I was about 40 pounds overweight, and that's gone.
Yeah, well, stay thin. If you eat healthy and you stay thinner, you'll have a better chance of that not coming back, for sure. So.
Yeah. Well, I had just seen the oncologist, and they were a little bit surprised the way all my numbers have come back already.
Mm-hmm.
How they test for your blood and all that. And the only thing that was down a little bit was my platelets a little bit. But other than that, everything else was good.
That's very good. You're an amazing guy. Make sure you keep in touch and keep us informed on how you're doing, okay?
Oh, I will.
Thanks for calling in, Luke. Have a great day.
Same to you.
Thanks.
Bye.
So there we go. There's somebody that actually had pretty much same thing I have, and he decided to go through the treatment, and sounds like he's done very well. Really happy for the guy, and that's, It's a radical treatment, and I'm sure, what Luke told us probably doesn't half describe, how he felt. He's probably pretty beat up, good part of that time, and that's just how a lot of that goes. But in killing those cancer cells, a lot of other cells get killed too, and but God bless him. I wish him well. So I want to get back to this radical remission kind of thing because this, in my mind, is it's very important because I've decided not to go that radical treatment route that modern medicine uses. And so here's a little article about a lady who says her name was Lola Baltzel, and said she should have died 3 years ago. Instead, she's celebrating the 5th anniversary of her diagnosis of metastatic breast cancer by biking 110 miles to raise money for Dana-Farber Cancer Institute. And not only is she alive after 6 years, when the median survival for her type of cancer was 3 years, but she's been clear of cancer, so no sign of cancer, for 5.5 years. And her doctors told her, you will never be in remission. You're a chronic patient. You'll never be cured. And that's what doctors kept telling her. But she said every scan since then has been negative. And so this PhD that went on to do these studies and study all these people that had these unique and sometimes much more profound improvements than even this lady, came up with 9 basic common traits that these people who survived all seem to have, whether they took traditional treatment or not, but they got better either way. And these individuals, sometimes called exceptional patients, they're beginning to attract the attention of researchers in general. So this PhD put together all this information and she came up with 9 common traits that basically you can kind of count on that need to be present in some form in order for people to respond positively. And, I would tell you that not only does this apply to curing illness, to curing disease, but this would also apply to maintaining good health, because they all fall right in that wheelhouse. If you do these things, you have a much better chance of staying healthy. And if you're very sick and you have some major disease, you have a much better chance of recovering. So the 9 traits on this, and this is right out of the research from her book, they changed their diets. Almost all of them radically changed their diets. They took control of their health, followed their intuition. And folks, I've been struggling with this for the past week, in that I'm looking for guidance with my faith, and I wonder if my intuition is a reflection of that guidance or if it's just my own intellect. And not to say it's all that high, but anyway, it is true that following the intuition helps. Some of them used herbs and supplements. Some of them released suppressed emotions, increased their positive emotions. They embraced social support, which I've done greatly as well. And I thank everybody who has supported me along the way, and Denise and I, and we just have had tremendous support from family, friends, patients, listeners. It's just incredible, overwhelming at times. And all of these people deepened their spiritual connection. Well, of course, when you get diagnosed with something that says, odds are you're going to die, then most people do turn to God at that point, whether you have in the past or not. And I would highly recommend not waiting till that point, because there's a lot to be had from that, from having a connection with God, even without disease, and to rely on that, to have strong faith. It's something we all really should have. And lastly, and I think this probably should be first, is that all these people had strong reasons for living. I can honestly say, and I've had discussions with my wife on this, where I would be realistic and say, okay, so I'm told, I might have, so many months or maybe a year or so to live. Well, you get into this mode where you want everything to be lined up and take care of details and things like that. And pretty soon you start looking down this path, and in your mind you're saying, well, gee, here you get on this path, almost like on a path to death, to where you've conceded. And there's a dividing line right there that you need to think about, in that when you talk about those things, not saying they shouldn't be taken care of and details shouldn't be put into place, but they should be put into place and then put aside and get back to the positive attitude and the reason for living and the thing that makes you get up every morning and the thing that drives you every day, and doing things to help other people because that makes us feel good inside, and working in a positive direction. So hard to separate those because emotionally every day can be an up and a down depending on how you're feeling. But when I come back, we're going to finish up on that thought. Thanks for listening.
Welcome back to Incredible Health with Dr. David Vitko.
All righty, just a few minutes left here, and I had a comment from some folks from last week's show, and they said, "Wow, you sound good. You sound like your energy's up," and my energy is up, folks. I think I've been able to get my iron levels up. I've been focusing on high iron type foods. And one of the things that I can still eat that is a dry food basically are raisin cookies. And actually, my wife made a great recipe of blackstrap molasses, raisin, and oatmeal cookies that I'm able to eat, with a little bit of milk or something like that. And that has a fair amount of iron in it. And when you read about iron, you find that, for one thing, sugar helps iron be absorbed better in the body. So there are certain types of iron supplements that you take, like the liquid ones supposedly should be absorbed a little better because they have this sugar substance with it. But I have a hard time with iron supplements, but I do take something called Slow Fe, and I think that's gradually brought it up. And I swear that the raisins are a big part of it, too. And because that's one big thing I've been doing different. I heat up soups and puree them for the most part to be able to get them down. And can't eat a whole lot of real solid foods. That comes and goes a little bit. So we'll see how that goes over the next couple of weeks or so. But, it's a daily thing. Things change day to day. My symptoms change. Sometimes it seems like day to day. And it's hard to stay up every day. It's hard to keep yourself up because you have these things that just come along and like rip the rug out from underneath you. And it just feels like, you just, are not making progress, but I stick to the things that I'm planning to make change this whole thing, and that is these off-purpose medications, the metformin, mebendazole, Lipitor, doxycycline, and the ozone water that I use. And now the hot bath thing is what I want to bring up. And it's been demonstrated that exposing cancer cells to 108 degrees water for an hour kills them. And that's not necessarily possible in all cases, but the hot baths really feel good, and I like it about as hot as I can stand it, so who knows? That's become a part of my routine now. I'm going to talk to you next week. It's Dr. David Vitko, and this is Enjoy Incredible Health. Thanks for listening, folks.